My name is Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today we're going to talk about the 20 singers that James Hetfield listed as the greatest of all time. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave your comment. If you want to read more about this, you can go to the description and read the article we wrote about this video, okay? Well, let's start. Back in 2008, Rolling Stone magazine did a list of the 100 best singers of all time. And to come up with that list, they asked for help. Obviously, journalists and many other people in the magazine voted, but they also asked for the help of famous musicians, and James Hetfield was one of them. And the magazine released the list made by James Hetfield. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. So let's start. Number 20. Position number 20, he chose Maynard James Keenan from Tool. Well, Tool is let's say a heavy metal progressive rock group, progressive metal group. I don't know the right term, but Tool is one of those bands that has a huge following, although they are not one of the best-selling bands of all time, but they are a cult following band. They got a huge amount of people going to their concerts, and they are very respected in their kind of music. And it's certainly one of the most important American bands from the past 3 decades. Obviously, they are really influential, and that's the person he chose for position number 20. Position number 19, he chose Jazz Coleman from Killing Joke. He was a famous, he became a famous musician in the early 80s as the vocalist for Killing Joke. And he was known for his raspy voice and obviously to an intense stage presence. It's another artist he chose for the position number 19. And position number 18, you're gonna see that there are many hard rock, heavy metal, hardcore, punk, many of these kind of singers here, because these are the people who influenced Hetfield the most. Number 18, you have Lee Ving, who is best known as the frontman of the Los Angeles-based hardcore punk band called Fear, which is another really important band that came out from that era for the hardcore punk style music genre. Another person who was influenced by Fear was Slash, Guns N' Roses. Slash, already mentioned it. Fear as being a band that influenced him. And another interesting thing about Lee Ving is that he was also an actor. He was in movies like Flashdance, Streets of Fire, and a movie called Clue, released in 1985. All those movies are from the 80s. Number 17 is Kevin Cole Morris from Discharge. Discharge is an English punk band that was formed in 1977, and it went by, it had several lineup changes over since they were formed in 1977, and it's another influential band, another band that influenced James a lot, and Metallica, obviously. And we go to number 16, who is John Bush. John Bush from Armored Saint. And Bush also had spent some time as the vocalist, a few years as the vocalist of Anthrax. And curiously, originally, Metallica wanted him to be their vocalist. So almost John Bush was Metallica's frontman. But eventually, since they couldn't find a frontman, James Hetfield decided to also sing besides playing the guitar, and that's what happened. We go to number 15, who is Johnny Cash. Now we got someone quite different from the others he mentioned it so far. Not Johnny Cash wasn't essentially a rock and roll artist. He was a country artist, but I think he's probably the biggest rock star of country music because of his attitude, his lyrics, his his protest songs, his attitude. I consider him to be a rock and roll musician, although he was primarily a country musician. Excuse me for the coughing because I'm not feeling that great these days. Number 14, Sean Harris from Diamond Head. Well, he was the vocalist of Diamond Head, a really influential band from the new wave of the British heavy metal. And it's clearly a huge influence to Metallica, since Diamond Head's biggest hit is the song Am I Evil? And Metallica did an incredible version for that track, and which became also one of Metallica's signature songs, let's say. There are many people who first heard Metallica's version and then heard Diamond Head's version, or people who have no idea that this song is not originally written by Metallica. And Sean Harris is really certainly a very underrated vocalist, for sure. And we go to number 13, which is Freddie Mercury from Queen. Well, Freddie, I don't even have to present him. He certainly is one of the greatest singers of all time, and I think that anybody who makes a list of the greatest singers of all time and doesn't include Freddie doesn't know nothing about rock and roll and music, because he was certainly not only one of the greatest singers of all time, but one of the greatest songwriters of all time. He was a fundamental part of Queen and from music, for sure. And we go to number 12. I don't want to make this video very, very long, so let's speed up. Number 12, Ronnie Van Zant from Lynyrd Skynyrd. One of the greatest bands of all time, for sure. Lynyrd Skynyrd was certainly one of the greatest American bands, at least, of all time. And tragically, Johnny lost his life in the airplane crash that killed many people, and he sadly was one of the victims. And in 1977, and at least he left us incredible songs. I mean, Free Bird, Sweet Home Alabama, Give Me Back My Bullets, so many great tracks. I mean, he was an incredible songwriter and an incredible singer as well. Number 11, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, and James Hetfield was a huge, and always continues to be a huge fan of Aerosmith. And he said many times that he had posters on his wall when he was a teenager by the Toxic Twins, who were Steven Tyler and Joe Perry. And there's an interesting story that I'm gonna record a video about this in the future, that he used to send Aerosmith letters asking them for the lyrics because he wanted to know exactly what they were singing, and there were some songs he couldn't really understand some words, and he was a huge fan of he is a huge fan of Aerosmith. Now we reach the top 10. Number 10, Mr. Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. Another one I don't have to say anything about it. He certainly is one of the greatest singers of all time, in one of the greatest bands of all time, and one of the best-selling bands of all time. We go to number 9, and maybe some people might disagree with Hetfield on this one, who is Mr. Ozzy Osbourne from Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath is another band that influenced Metallica and James Hetfield a lot, of course. And Hetfield had the chance to induct Black Sabbath into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame back in 2006. it was him and Lars Ulrich who inducted Metallica into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there are many connections between Ozzy and Metallica. I mean, Metallica's current bassist Rob Trujillo started playing ST, but he was after that Ozzy's bassist, and then Metallica invited him to join the band, and he's their bassist for more than 20 years already, right? And we go to number 8, and that's a curious choice, who is Glenn Danzig, who is the vocalist of Misfits, certainly one of the most underrated bands of all time, in my opinion. One of the godfathers of punk horror, if we can call it that music genre. And obviously, he well, besides being Misfits vocalist for quite a while, he also had a very successful career. There are many incredible solo albums he released, and he is really a great singer. And we get to number 7. Number 7 is Mr. Lemmy Kilmister. And Motorhead is certainly one of the biggest inspirations Metallica ever had. And they were huge friends. They already played dressed up as Lemmy. You can check it out that on YouTube. It's really cool. And they had a really huge bond with Lemmy. And the interesting thing is that the only Grammy Metallica ever got, Motorhead ever got, was after covering a Metallica song. They covered the song Whiplash, and they got a Grammy for that. So that's quite curious, and there are many other incredible stories that we're going to talk about it later. And we go to number 6. Number 6 is simply Paul Di'Anno, the first Iron Maiden vocalist to record an album with the band. He was the vocalist on the self-titled album Iron Maiden, and released in 1980, and on Killers, which was the second Iron Maiden album. And he was eventually replaced by Bruce Dickinson, but he is certainly a very underrated artist. And Iron Maiden, those first 2 Iron Maiden albums were really influential to Lars and James, and they really, when they talk about Iron Maiden, you see that they tend to talk more about those 2 albums. I don't know if they're as big fans of the Bruce Dickinson era as they were from those 2 albums, because those 2 first albums, although Steve Harris hated punk, didn't like punk music, they were very punky in my opinion, and maybe that's what makes Hetfield prefer those first 2 albums, and to list Paul Di'Anno and not list Bruce Dickinson, for example. And we reach the top 5. The top 5, number 5, Mr. Bon Scott from AC/DC, one of the most incredible singers of all time for sure. Tragically left us too soon back in 1988 at the age of 33. And he was a fundamental part of AC/DC, not only as the vocalist, but as a songwriter. He co-wrote many tracks with Malcolm and Angus Young. And we move to number 4, let's speed up, Mr. Chris Cornell, who tragically left us too soon. And he was just an incredible artist. I mean, a songwriter, but what a voice, man. What a voice Chris Cornell had. Soundgarden and Audioslave, and with his solo career, I mean, he was just amazing. And it's really sad that we don't have him anymore with us. Imagine what he could have done, such an incredible artist. And we go to number 3, Mr. Rob Halford. Mr. Rob Halford from Judas Priest, certainly the metal god, and he should be in this list. And he is an incredible vocalist. And Judas Priest is certainly one of the bands that influenced Metallica the most, and they never really said nothing else about it. They always praised Judas Priest, and they are one of their favorite bands. And we move to the second position, Mr. Lane Staley, the late Lane Staley, who was the vocalist of Alice in Chains, and sadly he had a tragic end at the age of 32 back in 2002. And it's one of those tragic cases of a grunge vocalist who sadly passed away too soon. I mean, Alice in Chains was probably one of the heaviest grunge bands, I believe, you know. I think they were really there in the middle of grunge and heavy metal. They got so many incredible songs, and Laney was a fundamental part of the band, man. That voice was just amazing. And we reached the first position, who is certainly one of the greatest. I would choose him for the first position too if I was the one making this list, and is Mr. Ronnie James Dio. I mean, Metallica even have the chance to play on Dio's tribute album that I can't remember the name, but they were one of the famous artists who played on that album, and he was a huge inspiration for them. He was a good friend of the band as well. And there's an interesting story that James Hetfield asked Dio once how he prepared his voice for the show, and Dio simply said he did nothing. He just drank a glass of wine, and that was it. He didn't warm his voice. There were no vocal training, nothing. He was a natural gifted man, you know. And obviously he first achieved fame with Elf, and then he joined Rainbow and Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. Then he joined Black Sabbath, and then he became famous with his own band Dio. I mean, what a wonderful career Ron James Dio had, and he sadly left us too soon, a victim of cancer. But this is the list. That's it. I hope you liked the video. It's a little bit long. I'm sorry for that, but I promise to be more fast the next time. And that's it. Please like the video, subscribe, comment, and visit rockandrollgarage.com. Okay? See you later.